Now, there's been an outcry over Belinda Magor's comments. Now, this follows a voice note where she's calling for black people to be banned. The SA Human Rights Commission is probing the incident, and they are not the only organisation looking into the matter. Right2Know says she deserves to be jailed, as such utterances beg the question of whether the Truth and Reconciliation Commission was effective or not. Let's bring in Right2Know, now Right2Know's national coordinator, Verushka Memdutt, for more. Thank you so much for joining us, Verushka. Of course, this is such a huge topic right now in the country. Everybody, I think most people have listened to that voice note. And when you do listen to that voice note, you can't help but think 30 years into South Africa's democracy, almost 30 years, we still have to deal with things like this.
Good evening. Yes, indeed, we still have to deal, but fortunately, racism is no longer institutionalized. And it is clear that action is being taken, action will be taken, and there is huge support to ensure that there is justice served in an instance like this.
Just, speaking on punishment, when it comes to we still don't know what the verdict will be. The Human Rights Commission is looking into this matter, but what is the desired outcome you would like to see?
When we look at it, we're not here to judge. We would leave that up to the courts, but surely we expect the courts to be fair in the judgment. A 60-year-old woman, someone who was awake and mature during the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, should surely be leading by example. And at this stage, to hear an individual utter something of this nature is appalling. It is unwarranted and it is unnecessary. I'm hoping, we as an organization are hoping that the courts deal with this in a manner that we do not see repetitions of such actions or behaviors going forward.
Now, you did mention in a statement you released that, such utterances beg the question of whether the Truth and Reconciliation Commission was effective or not. Now, that's what I'd like to ask you. Do you think that, sometimes law enforcement structures and maybe even government itself fail South Africans when it comes to racial abuse, racism in general in this country?
I think South Africans are such a forgiving group of people. It is often that much is overlooked when, in fact, it needs to be dealt with. And once again, we are faced with a situation that needs to be dealt with. And without straying from the actual situation, we now need to say, this is what it is, this is where we've come to, and this is how it's going to be handled. And this incident should set an example. So whilst we may question, and we do question what impact the Truth and Reconciliation Commission did have, what we are saying is, let us lead from here forward. Let there be consequences so that we do not have a recurrence of this again.
After Penny Sparrow, a lot of people would think, this would probably be the last that we would see something like, this happen. And again, we are sitting with a similar situation. Sparrow, she was found guilty of hate speech in the Equality Court. That was in 2016. Ordered to pay 150,000 Rand. She was also sentenced for those, 2 years imprisonment, but of course suspended for 5 years, so not really having an effect there. But when it comes to the two situations, some would say that this one with Belinda might even be a little bit worse than what Sparrow did and said on that Facebook statement she posted. So would you like to see a harsher punishment when it comes to Belinda?
Surely, and there should be a harsher punishment, and there should be a sentencing, because it seems as though a slap on the wrist is no longer working, and that's clearly what we're seeing it as. I think for people who've had the privilege, it's very easy to say that there's an outcry, a huge outcry. Why are we hearing this? But for many of us who have lived through the racism, the institutionalized racism, some of us who face it often, daily, we see it, it's very much alive. And the truth is, it needs to be said. As long as we're going to hide the fact that we're facing some sort of racism at some level daily, it's never going to go away. What are we teaching our children? They should not be such. We need to find a means to live together in harmony. And one way of achieving that is by dealing with instances like this.
And just very lastly, Verushka, have you as an organization laid charges against Belinda?
No, we have not laid charges. Charges have been laid by a political organization already. The Human Rights Commission are taking action. They're busy with the process currently, and we will follow these processes through, not meaning to duplicate anything at this stage. But yes, we are watching it very closely.
All right. Thank you so much, Verushka, from the Right2Know campaign, of course, talking on the Belinda Magor situation. Very sad indeed.